Hello everybody, and thank you for joining us today for our Microsoft Windows Server 2003 End of Life webinar. So today we'll be joined by Jack Luty from Bytes Software Services and Rick Howe from Microsoft.
Thank you, Sarah. Welcome everybody. So here I am going to be talking to you about the Cloud OS. So we've made some really big advancements recently in the Cloud OS, and I'd just like to really start talking to you about other things within other industries. So if we look around at things like manufacturing and the fact that BMW are automating cars along with many other car manufacturers, and we're doing that because actually machines are often better at doing stuff than we are. They don't get tired, they don't text while driving. But this is a picture of effectively a machine that goes around warehouses and picks up pallets. And it's been modified so that it is automated. So when you go onto a website, you order something, this thing goes and knows where it is on the shop floor and brings it to the front to be picked. So actually, if you think about it, we as the IT industry are a little bit behind if we compare ourselves to other industries. So one of the things that's actually stopping us from being able to get to this modern way of automating and standardizing things is that we're all still using old server software. And in fact, I'm sure there'll be some people on the call who are guilty of using even older than 2003 perhaps. But as of right now, we've got not very long at all, just a number of months to go until the end of support actually kicks in. And if we're thinking about doing stuff like server migration, which is arguably one of the more simple things, optimistic estimates recommend that actually we should have already started that. And if we've got bespoke applications and that kind of thing running on this older infrastructure, then that could take anywhere up to a year or beyond to actually move all of those things over and actually mitigate all of the different dependencies that are there. So over the last year, we've seen 37 critical updates for Windows Server 2003. That may or may not be a big deal for most people, but one of the really major things that we're seeing a lot of people rightly concerned about, is that people like Visa and MasterCard are not prepared to work with you if you're running transactional systems on unsupported operating systems. So this is a big deal for a lot of customers, and it actually tells us something about that system. And really, do we want to be running anything that's kind of mission critical or key to our business on something that is unsupported? And in fact, those operational costs, those support costs from Microsoft are actually incredibly high now. So it doesn't really make business sense to be paying that extra cost. And part of the reason why we've increased the cost like that is because we don't really want our support guys to be carrying on learning out-of-date operating systems. We want to get them onto the latest platform, just like we'd like you to be running your business on a more modern platform. We'd like to see our employees all able to kind of support and learn the more modern ways of doing things. And so really, we need to start thinking about doing this stuff now, if we haven't already. I'm sure some people have got plans out there of how they want to start doing this, and there's no better people than the guys at Bytes to be able to help you on that way. And we've seen a lot of change in the industry recently. We go back a few years, people were very scared of cloud and skeptical about cloud. And actually, it's not Microsoft saying this. IDC themselves are saying that they predict that by 2016, 70% of CIOs are actually going to be adopting a cloud-first strategy, not just dabbling in cloud, but actually adopting a cloud-first strategy. So if something is able to work best in the cloud, then actually that's the place that we're seeing that people are moving towards. We're seeing increased spend in IT services on cloud as well. But actually, we're seeing an increase in demand of IT projects as well. And I have another stat out there that I realized that actually the CMO is predicted to be more in control of the IT budget than the CIO or the CTO. So we're shifting in terms of the way that we're actually doing IT now and how we're actually using IT to better run our businesses. So when we look at Azure, which is our public cloud, there's a lot of things that we've learned from that. So we run over 200 services in Azure currently, everything from things like Outlook, Hotmail, right through to Bing, and Skype as well. And we have something called Skype Translator as well, which can do real-time translation. So we've actually learned a lot about running cloud services. And what we realized is that one of the most important things when you're running a large-scale infrastructure is to standardize, because you cannot automate without standardizing. I've lost count of the amount of customers that I talk to that haven't standardized. They've got completely bespoke configurations on every one of their servers, and it just means that any automation is pretty much impossible, and everything needs to be done manually, and every server needs to be looked at individually. And that's one of the things that's really hampering us if we look back at the way that we used to run data centers. And we realized that in order to be able to scale and provide the kind of performance that we get in Azure, is we had to change things. We could not service the 50,000 network request changes that we get daily in Azure if people were manually doing that stuff. And people are much more prone to be making mistakes as well. So when we're talking about that kind of scale, it makes sense to be automating. But even if you're not doing things on that level of scale, actually learning from how you do things at that kind of scale can make you much more efficient on a much smaller scale as well. And so, we've taken this huge infrastructure that we've got in Azure and actually brought the benefits to you to use in your own data centers. So if we talk about the Cloud OS, we really see it divided into three areas. So we see the private cloud, that would be your data center, being a big integral part of the Cloud OS. And then we've got public cloud, which is Microsoft Azure. So that's our data centers running your services. And then thirdly, we've got service providers. So this is the hosting providers out there. And we've got an enormous Cloud OS network of people that can provide a much more bespoke infrastructure service to you than you would get maybe in Azure. If you've got some very specific requirement around needing a server to be run in a specific rack and only managed by English people on English soil, then some of the service providers out there can provide that kind of granular control. But one thing I'd really like to point out is that cloud means different things to different people. So if we look at Amazon Web Services, cloud to them is running infrastructure as a service. If you talk to VMware, it's about running a cloud on your own infrastructure and maybe using their data centers, which you pay a very large sum of money for the privilege of doing that. If you talk to someone like Salesforce, they'll tell you that software as a service, that's cloud. So at Microsoft, we've realized that actually all of those things are a form of cloud. And we've not kind of hampered our solution in terms of saying that it's one of those things. But what we've been able to do in order to be able to offer this hybrid solution, which is what we're finding more and more of our customers want. They don't want to necessarily go wholeheartedly to the cloud or wholeheartedly to a service provider, or in fact wholeheartedly on-premise. There's a lot of stuff that for compliance reasons or governance reasons or just to feel safe and secure and control and in control, people want to keep that stuff on-premise. But there are lots and lots of use cases for where it makes business sense to be pushing that stuff out to other service providers and let them actually worry about the updates, let them worry about actually managing that infrastructure. And the reason that we've been able to do that is because of Hyper-V. So Hyper-V runs in all three of these areas. And actually, if we look at someone like Amazon Web Services or Google that offer similar kind of worldwide global scale as a cloud platform as Microsoft do, they all do custom work on open source hypervisors, and they don't give you that hypervisor back. So you can't go and get Google's hypervisor or Amazon's hypervisor. What we give you in Windows Server 2012 R2 is Hyper-V, and it's the same Hyper-V that runs in Azure, and it's the same Hyper-V that runs in our service providers as well. So it's really important that we've kept that consistent platform because it gives you that ability to test and dev in the cloud and pull that back to on-premise and vice versa as well. or to lift and shift different services up to the cloud, or to scale out, to burst out into that cloud as well. So we've got a financial company in America that they spin up 10,000 virtual machines for 1 hour at the end of each month in order to do their month end, thereby saving themselves $3 million over the course of the year. So, really, really big savings to be made by actually just thinking about where does it make business sense to be running these services. And this is our opportunity to go back and actually look at our entire estate and start thinking about where are the destinations for these servers. We might find servers that actually we don't need or aren't being used by many or any people at all. But likewise, we might just find that there's a service that is better suited to being managed and run elsewhere. So one thing that we've also done is that if you've got System Center and Windows Server, you've also automatically got Windows Azure Pack. And what we've done there is try to bring you that self-service experience that you would get from a cloud service and bring that on-premise for you. So that whether you're actually spinning up a service in Azure or spinning up a service on the cloud, it's a consistent, in your own cloud, it's a consistent platform, a consistent view, a single pane of glass that you're able to actually provide that to your business. And actually we're finding that the IT department is becoming more and more like a service provider itself, and that the actual employees of customers are becoming the customers of the IT department. And the more that we think like that, the more relevant this kind of technology becomes. So I'm going to be handing over to Jack now. Jack's going to be taking you through some of the offerings that Bytes have.
Thank you very much. And good morning, everyone. I think kind of the slides that have just been taken through there by Microsoft kind of really show what a great opportunity this is, and not just something that's being forced by Microsoft. And I think all of the plans that you maybe thought of over the last 4 or 5 years, this is a really good time to move and to start get the benefits of Microsoft and obviously the technologies that millions, if not billions of pounds have been invested in. And what I'm going to do today, because I realise we're reasonably short on time, is go through the Bytes migration approach, because we've seen there's a direct opportunity here to latch into the same principles of Microsoft along automation. So for those of you who know Bytes or don't, we specialise in licensing and helping people to get the most out of that technology with a series of partners. So what we've done is put together a process called Bytes Migrate that uses obviously our in-house skill expertise and obviously best-of-breed technologies that keep on those automation principles. So just to go over some stats here, and all of the events I stand up and actually work and put hands in the air, this kind of rings true. If not, this is dumbed down a bit. So 38% of respondents from a poll that we were part of had 1,000 or more machines running Windows Server 2003, and so if you just click through these, so they just fly up. Only 1/4 of respondents already have an upgrade plan in place for remediating the risk of Windows Server 2003 end of life, and that's pretty much the same. And I think people are starting to jump on that now. Clearly, the fact that you guys are attending this webinar kind of demonstrates that. 43% will be moving their applications to the cloud as part of an upgrade process, but I think it's kind of worth really hammering down on the point that the move to the cloud is optimum when you're bulldozing hardware for OS workloads. I mean, if you've got brand new technology and brand new hardware, it's very difficult to justify that. So we click into the next slide, please, Sarah. So this is a really clear and easy to understand slide. It just means that there are millions and millions and millions of Windows servers still running out there, which is really good from Microsoft's perspective, because obviously they've created really great technology, but this shows that the sheer scale of this, and considering things like SQL Server 2005 end of life next year, it shows that you guys are not alone, and it really goes to show that there's going to be a lot of movement over the next few months. If you click into the next slide, please. So really, I'm going to fly through these because I think you guys know what your fears and concerns and where you're planning, and where you don't have that in place. Companies like Bytes with the systems of Microsoft can really help you. So there's incompatibilities of applications, hardware and software refresh costs, changing a stable environment, security breaches not being covered, compliance audit, disrupting the business. But let's face it, if you don't do it, those are going to become much fiercer realities than if you actually do. So clearly we have the ability now to adopt cloud via a number of mechanisms, maintain peace of mind for running secure and proven infrastructures, new capabilities of the Cloud OS as we've kind of gone through recently, and simplifying control and management, consolidating hardware. And I think you guys all know what the benefits you'll get of this are. I think it's just been very difficult to justify budget and cost previously. You click through again, please, Sarah. So really I want to talk about the benefits of an upgrade as opposed to kind of the situations and the pains, because you guys are going to have those anyway, really. So there are clearly cost savings, but this could cost you more money if you don't have licensing and you need to buy everything. But there are clear cost savings that you can obviously map over a number of years. The simplicity, that single pane of glass that Microsoft obviously allude to, and then the peace of mind that you are secure. And I'm seeing there's a lot of public sector people on this webinar as well. There's a lot of compliance that people need to jump in, and it would kind of worry me as well. Back to one of the slides from Microsoft around MasterCard and Visa and these people not doing business with you. So that's just a kind of outline. So we click to the next slide, please, and again. So not to forget that Bytes are a licensing house. Just literally, I know you guys have been living in 2012 for a little while now. We can cover off any of these if you guys are not sure of the kind of parameters, but it's a switch from per box licensing to per proc when we've gone into Windows Server 2012. Clearly the end of life is going to be the end of June. So what you've now got the considerations is if I'm moving that from a physical to virtual, and clearly the real difference between Windows Server Standard and Datacenter now is just those unlimited virtualization rights. And then physical to cloud, and that's where kind of the complexity and probably the fear of the unknown comes in everyone's mind is, can I go there? Do I have mobility rights? Can I virtualize that technology in the cloud? And we can make that very clear for you guys. Next, please. So, like to dip into it, but to step back to the fact that, you know, I mean, we always kind of have that phrase, put your money where your mouth is, and I think Microsoft are certainly doing that now and have realized that we've got some great technology, but it does take a massive amount to get to that point, because it's not just evolving or upgrading a system. There's a number of issues and things that you need to take into consideration. So I just wanted to put this slide up so you can see the breadth and the scale, even in just the software asset management workload for funding, that we can potentially, and I know there's some businesses that you are sat on here today that we could potentially look at a cloud-ready deployment and get you £38,000 that will be used against that to obviously look at your whole situation and to give you all of those ins and outs and give you the ability to work with the business to move. So I just wanted to bring that up, and if you haven't got any funding from Microsoft yet, I'd really kind of push you to talk to your account manager, whether it's Bytes or another account manager, because this is vast. This can be attached to spend. This can be attached to true-ups if it's the right time of year. There's a lot of funding that falls outside of this, and there's a lot of clever ways that you can work with Microsoft to get that first bit done, because clearly going to the business and saying we need to do this move, I want £40,000 to get to that point, is quite difficult because there's no deliverable. Whereas if we can reduce that barrier, we're finding this works really well. And clearly there's deliverables back to Microsoft because they wouldn't just throw money out, but those deliverables in everyone's interest. Next slide, please. So this is at a high level, and we've kind of mirrored what Microsoft recommend as methodology, and we've really mirrored this in with our software asset management process as well, because this all starts at that discovery phase. So because of the fact we're going on those automation principles and we're not looking to bring in engineers and to do manual testing and regression testing, we're looking to do what we do best, which is the licensing piece and the discovery and looking at the various options, and then use for, say, in the assess tools like Blue Stripe, which will go out and look at where we can consolidate, test your applications, give us performance yields into the cloud, and obviously test that going back forward. Tools like Double Take, where we're migrating, and then obviously we use a number of processes, including your input, for the target. But generally, we are seeing that this would reduce migration time by up to 70% and cost in excess of 50%, simply because we are following the automation principles, and we're doing things very differently because we don't have a lot of engineers' mouths to feed. But a very, very important point to note here is any of these parts of these modules, you could have that information or you could have that data already. You might just want us to come in and help you with the migration piece or to validate the discovery. This isn't a one-size-fits-all. This is wherever you are in this process, wherever you think you need assistance, we can obviously provide that layer along the principles that should really bring those performance and kind of cost yields back to you. So just to cover, and I'll go into these in a really high-level detail, and we've got a much more in-depth pack that goes into the technologies themselves, the benefits, but the discovery is the server discovery, the application discovery, and the contract entitlement, that SAM piece. Assessed by app categorization, which you guys need to tell us whether these are important or not. App compatibility, app consolidation, infrastructure re-architecting analysis, because clearly you may be moving entirely here, so we might be able to change things very creatively to obviously reduce the cost massively. Then we're choosing collectively whether it's going physical, virtual, cloud, hybrid cloud, and then the migrate, which is obviously application migration, application testing. So if we just go into the next slide, this is where it all kind of starts, and I think we might need to click through a couple of times. So this is where it all kind of starts, and this is no, go back up one. This is actual data that obviously is branded as bytes here, but it's very clear when I go and talk to customers now that the fundamental issue why this doesn't start is because people do not know what they have. No one ever knows exactly what they have. What they know is that they have too many or too little. And clearly, if you're looking at technologies, budgeting, workloads, manpower, unless you have a clear idea of what servers you actually have and the effects of that move to your licensing, you can't actually really begin this process, because if you, say, for example, had 1,000 servers, 200 of those you could potentially consolidate because they're not being used effectively, they're only being spun up at said times. You go out and then license for 1,000 instances of a technology that's going to help you to move that. So you start to really diminish that away. You can't actually create a statement of works. You can't start until you've begun this piece. And I'm not sure how kind of clear this is for you guys to see, but when we're looking at a company that maybe hasn't used software assurance historically and they've grown over a number of years, so they bought 2008, 2008 R2, 2012, and now we're in this situation where we need to now look at this move away from 2003 and the effects on the licensing. So clearly you can see in the top left that, that you can really, for the most cost-effective way within the license entitlement that you have, but there's obviously a technical issue in the fact that you're only using 2008. You can see the cost is vastly different to that on the third line down in that top left table, which obviously is 2.5 times the cost. But you can also see that there's in red bold there's a static saving. So are we using high availability? Are we not using high availability? And what is the effect of that? So what this then does is, with potentially Microsoft funding, gives you that fundamental building block to obviously understand what the actual potential cost is. And you guys really need to consider whether you're using an enterprise agreement, an MPSA, an enterprise subscription agreement, and where you are within that actual term, because if you're coming up to renew your EA, clearly this is a great opportunity to limit and potentially leave you with a number of licenses that you can use it for a number of years because of the consolidation and all the other things you've not been able to do previously. So this is really, really very important. And if you have this data ready, great. But if you don't, this is something that for global organizations or those that probably have more than 150 or 200 servers really need to consider. And that is something that takes a great number of hours, and there's only a few specialists that can really map this and potential other workloads. But the next slide, please. We're limited on time for you guys. So really, once we have that clear picture, that kind of asset management view, we then need to, with either management tools that you have or tools like Blue Stripe or PlateSpin from NetIQ that there's another webinar coming up later, we need to then get some definitions around this. And similarly, if you've ever done software asset management where you need to understand those non-physical connections and the things that you can't see as a third party, you need to obviously help by type, by criticality, which is something that only you guys can do because we don't know whether it's mission critical. We can just see a workload within a server. And obviously from this point, we have the asset management. We've then created, using those tools, where we can consolidate and get the benefit. And with the tools that we have, you can almost draw a Windows 2003 server and draw a line up to Azure, or it could be a non-Microsoft solution, or it could be a physical, or it could be obviously a virtual or a hybrid cloud solution. What that will then do is obviously allow us to give you the performance yields of moving it into that element, and therefore we now have the total number of servers that we know we need. We know the implications of the licensing and the opportunities for that matter that we can bring that up, and that's when we're in a position to create a statement of works. So next slide, please. And I think anyone that comes in and tries to create a statement of works off a general conversation, I'd really kind of question that, because there's so many things that are unknown. But this just kind of just a visual representation of what I've just said and evaluating the workloads, because clearly what we now need to get to is, on the next slide, if you can bring that in, a slightly more detailed document, which is obviously we've gone through. We understand the licensing move. We understand that we can technically put that into the cloud or not, and we create something very similar to this, which is obviously going to give you any hardware specifications for cost, any new security that you need, any licensing that you need. Potentially, do I need to buy more VMware, or is now Hyper-V a more credible solution, and can I actually remove that VMware cost from the future? So once you have this targeted destination journey, what we're then in a position to do is to agree that the scope of that works. And then moving into the next slide, please. Look at things that very few companies can actually do. So we can then provide you a clear map of the move options and the ROI potential of actually following our kind of best principles and best practice through this. What we'll then do is all of the cloud sizing and all of the various providers, and generally comes 9 times out of 10 Microsoft's coming out on top, and clearly there's additional benefits that we've just spoken of then. That we will give you that clear solution, that clear cost, so you can actually then go to the business and say, look, here's the cost, we have to do this, but on top of that, all the things we haven't been able to do previously, here's the benefit as well. But I know we're not considering Azure at the moment, but we really should potentially be looking at some things, because we have 20 servers here that are only spun up, as the Macmillan case, etc. was there, only once a month, so we can really just get rid of those, and let's do that as an Azure workload. Next, please. So once you have that, it becomes very, very simple, and it will look something like this that the project teams, etc., will agree and push forward on. And once we have that agreed target destination, Bytes recommend, unless you want to do it yourself or you have an outsourcer, and quite a lot of the outsourcers are actually working with the technology specialists to do this, because it's not something that they particularly want to do. If you drop down to the last slide, please. I think it's the last slide. So this is the Bytes Migrate, it's the banner again, but it's the kind of before and after, and we use a tool called Double Take, which you guys may be familiar with and using in over a number of years. But in principle, Double Take moved 3,000 servers with almost zero downtime for Microsoft in the Nordics quite recently. And along those automation principles, if you look at Pareto law, I'm not saying, because everyone's going to be like, you can't move everything that we've got automatically. I know that, I really do. But if you look at Pareto law and the fact that 80% of that we might be able to, then for the last 20%, let's kind of look at break-fix solutions that are either going to be something that takes there temporary or something that sticks there for a long time. But using Double Take and all of these technology solutions, we can go over clearly with you guys and take you through another date. That's the technology that we would use. I think there are actually a couple of slides, but I'll rattle those very quickly, so there'll only be a couple more minutes. We go to the next slide, please. For those that aren't in a position to move, there are solutions out there, as you can imagine. So these are just a flavour of what's out there, because these are what we feel comfortable in recommending to people. But you've got Strategist Global, who are a cloud-hosted protection environment, and to kind of add a tiny little bit of context around that, you can't actually currently run, or you won't be able to, or support that up in Windows Server 2003. So partners like Strategist Global, a CSM partner with their own Azure-like Cloud Fabric, which means it's been accredited by Microsoft on which they can provision any type of cloud solution, including cloud platforms for Windows Server 2003. So if you guys had something that you kind of really wanted to stick on that, but you didn't have a kind of solution, that's a very easy way to put that out, and there's very few of those companies that do that. Semantic, advanced data center solution they have creates a hardened shell around your 2003 environments, and that can be licensed monthly as well. So even if you were to go to June, July, August per se, you could just license that for 3 months while you're doing your migration. And then there are solutions out there like PlateSpin by NetIQ, which you guys will be very familiar with, your capacity planning, and obviously the Microsoft extended support. I don't know, but keeping your kind of ear to the ground, the cost of Microsoft extended support may range between $2,500 to $4,000 per instance per year. So clearly within it shows Microsoft do not want to support you. They do not want to pay people to look after old technologies. They really want you to get off, and throughout the presentation previously and some of the things that we've just gone through there, I think that's quite clear. So I've gone to my last slide, which it really is. Just really want to kind of say where's the next action here for you guys if you did want to kind of talk to us, or if you wanted to find out any more information. So I think the last slide was just if you do want to talk to someone, clearly you've got account managers, or you can even just get my contact details and come to me, because I'm kind of co-running this program within the business. So it would be to book a call to discuss your current situation. It's all very different. What we would then do, if we thought there was a good reason to come and visit you, we would give you all of the details of the information that we would need, like server numbers, application lists, SAM data, any server information by our current tools, and then obviously we'd be able to provide a high-level comparison of the Bytes versus other offerings to get you kicked off. But that being said, if you have your own plan and you just want to get that automation piece done at the end, you can come and talk to us as well, and we'll obviously be able to take you through any of the kind of best-of-breed tool sets that we're using, be it Discovery or the Move itself. So I hope that gave you a really brief overview, and I think what it really, I just want to amplify again, is getting that first bit right, getting those building blocks right, otherwise the scope of these projects will creep. And there's obviously a lot of reasons why you guys haven't moved from that technology, but there are a lot of companies that are there ready to help you to do it, and to even assist. So that's it at a high level. Very happy to spend any time with anyone off the back of this to obviously answer any specific questions you have.